This happened a few weeks ago. I was working another night shift at the old city hospital. I had been a nurse for over a decade, but now I needed the extra money for my son. The hospital was huge. It looked like a creepy brick fortress. The flickering fluorescent lights just added to the unease. The long, empty halls felt haunting, like I wasn't alone. The first few nights, I heard noises, just some faint tapping. I thought it was a loose pipe or a door swinging. Nothing to get worried about, right? But each time I heard it, that uneasy feeling in my stomach insisted something wasn't right. I tried to brush it off, convincing myself it was just the loneliness of the night shift. But as the week went on, the tapping changed. It grew louder and became soft moans. It wasn't just the pipes. It sounded like someone was trying to talk. I tried to ignore it during my rounds, but my heart raced each time. My gut told me I was not alone in those sterile halls. Then one night, I decided I had to see what was causing the noises. I approached the storage room down the hall. The tapping was more urgent now, almost like a plea. I was scared, but I had to know. I gripped the doorknob with sweaty palms. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door. It was dark inside, just shelves filled with supplies and silence. I felt a chill wrap around me. The sounds were still there, now almost like whispers. I took a cautious step in, and I thought I saw movement. I turned, but there was nothing. My heart raced. I stumbled out of the room, shaking my head. Maybe it was just my imagination. The next nights, the noises continued. Each night, they grew more frantic. Then one night, I distinctly heard a voice call my name. At first, I thought it was my mind playing tricks, but it sounded too real. Mia, it echoed in the dark. I spent the following night on edge. I was checking on a patient when I glanced down the hall. There was someone there. A figure stood at the end, just staring at me. My throat went dry. I blinked. When I looked again, the figure was gone. Panic washed over me. I wanted to scream, "Who are you?" but the words wouldn't come out. A few nights later, I heard the voice again. This time it said my name, Mia. I rushed out to find whoever called me. I felt like I was losing my grip on reality. As I approached the nurse's station, I saw that figure again. This time it looked clearer. A woman with hollow eyes and pale skin. She stood there, silent. I froze. She lifted her hand, pointing down the dark hall. I felt dread crawl over me. I wanted to run, but I was stuck, unable to move. Suddenly, the lights flickered violently, and she vanished. I was left standing in the darkness, breathing hard, looking at the empty hallway. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that she wanted me to follow her. I didn't know what to do. I felt like there was more to her story, more truth I wasn't meant to uncover. I took a step back, but I could still hear her whispering my name, echoing in the darkness. I just wanted to go home. The next night, fear kept me awake. I lay in bed, my mind racing. Every creak of the building echoed in my ears. I could still hear her voice, faint but persistent. Mia. I told myself to stop thinking about it, but curiosity gnawed at me. I needed to know who she was and why she was calling me. When I arrived at the hospital that evening, the air felt thick and heavy. I made my rounds, trying to focus on my duties, but the whispers wouldn't leave me. I checked in on my patients, but my heart wasn't in it. It was as though something was waiting for me. I found myself back at the nurse's station, staring into the dark hallway where I had seen the woman. The lights flickered. My pulse quickened. I was on the edge, ready to collapse under the weight of my courage or my fear. Just then, a voice crackled through the intercom. "Code blue in room 204, the nurse's voice echoed. I jolted, fear churning in my stomach. Code blue meant a patient was in serious distress. I rushed towards the room, but something pulled at me, a force drawing me back to that hallway. I hesitated. What if I followed her this time? The tapping had become chaotic, a storm of haunting and pleading. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was down that hall was more urgent than a medical emergency. I took a shaky breath and turned down the hallway. The bright lights flickered again, just enough for me to doubt my own thoughts. When I reached the end of the corridor, I saw her again. She stood there, closer this time, her face twisted in sorrow. "Help me," she whispered. Her voice was laced with desperation. Before I could respond, she pointed again, further down the hall, where the shadows curled around the corners. I wanted to run, to escape, but it felt like my own feet betrayed me.
Instead, I took a step forward. Suddenly, the lights went out completely. Everything plunged into darkness. I felt the cold air wrap around me as panic surged. I stumbled blindly, reaching out for anything, walls, the floor, desperate to find my way. Then, amidst the fear, I heard a soft sobbing. I moved towards the sound and started to see shapes in the dim light filtering through an exit sign. I could barely make out the outline of a figure, but no longer could I hear the woman's voice. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling. The sobbing stopped. Silence fell, thick and suffocating. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Suddenly, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I gasped and spun around. My heart raced and I could barely breathe. "Don't be scared," a soft voice said. It was a nurse I recognized, but her face was pale. "You shouldn't be here." "What do you mean? What's going on?" I asked, desperate for answers. She stepped back, her eyes darting down the hall. "You have to leave. It's not safe."
That's when I saw it, a shadow moving at the far end of the corridor, growing larger and darker. I felt my stomach drop. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, but the shadow lingered, looming as if it were alive. "Run!" the nurse screamed, and in that moment I understood. I wasn't just dealing with a lost soul. I had stepped into something much darker. I bolted down the hallway, terrified. The nurse's scream echoed behind me, urging me on, but I didn't know where to go. I could hardly breathe, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. I felt the heavy presence behind me, its shadow dancing in the periphery of my vision. I rounded a corner, nearly tripping over my own feet. I needed to find safety. I ducked into a supply room, slamming the door shut and pressing my back against it. The room was dimly lit, supplies stacked haphazardly around me. I could hear my rapid breaths, each one echoing like a warning. The sobbing returned, soft and pitiful, growing louder outside the door. My stomach twisted. What if it was her, the woman who had called to me? A wave of dread washed over me. I clutched my phone, its glow lighting up my trembling hands. I had to call for help, but I couldn't bring myself to make a sound. I listened intently, hoping to differentiate between the sobs and the lingering shadow. What if it was just the nurse, or something worse? The sobbing intensified, morphing into wails. I clamped my hands over my ears, wishing I could block it all out. Then I remembered the nurse's warning. What was she afraid of? She had seemed startled, her face a mask of fear. I peeked through the small window in the door, desperate to understand. A figure moved in the dim light. It was the nurse, but she was no longer the calm presence I knew. Her eyes were wide, darting back and forth as if she were searching for something or someone. My heart sank. She looked terrified. "Please!" The cry slipped from my lips, and I winced, instantly regretting it. The figure turned sharply toward the door, dark eyes locking onto mine. "Mia!" she shouted, panicked. "You have to get out, now!" Before I could respond, another shadow emerged from behind her, a thicker darkness that seemed to coil itself around her. I gasped as I saw the outline of something monstrous, dual-horned and looming over her. My blood turned to ice as it inched closer, wrapping around the nurse like a noose. No, I wanted to scream, but the words got in my throat. The nurse's face twisted in horror as she turned to run, but the shadow surged forward, and she vanished as if swallowed whole. I stumbled back from the door, my mind racing. I had to escape, but I felt paralyzed by fear. That's when I remembered the emergency exit. I dashed to the other side of the supply room, my heart hammering against my ribcage. I pulled open the door. The staircase loomed, beckoning me with dim light flickering at the bottom.
I took a breath and plunged into the shadows, adrenaline pushing me forward. But as I felt the cold concrete beneath my feet, I heard it again, the soft sobbing, now rising in despair, echoing throughout the stairway. I froze. It was coming from below. I was in the dark, but the sound was a beacon. It was her again, the woman who had called to me. I had to know. I couldn't just run away this time. So, with trembling hands and a heart pounding with dread, I took a step back down. I descended slowly, each step a dance of uncertainty. The sobbing seemed to wrap around me, pulling me down like a forgotten memory. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, but the sound felt too real, too raw. As I reached the next landing, I hesitated. "Hello?" My voice trembled, swallowed by the darkness. Silence responded, thick and oppressive. I was about to turn back when I caught a flicker of movement further down the stairs. I strained my eyes, trying to see. The sobbing had stopped. The stillness felt heavy, almost expectant. I crept forward, inching down, fighting the urge to sprint back up. There was something down here, lurking just out of sight. Then I saw her, a woman huddled against the wall, her face hidden in her hands.
She was wearing a hospital gown, stained and tattered. My heart raced. "Are you okay?" She lifted her head. Tears streamed down her cheeks, her eyes wide and terrified. "You shouldn't be here. You have to go." "What happened?" My fear clawed at my throat. "Where's the nurse? What is that thing?" "Don't say its name," she cried, clutching her head as if I had struck her. "It hears you. It knows you're here." Panic surged through me. "What are you talking about? Tell me what I need to do." She took a shaky breath, her hands shaking. "There's no way out. We're all trapped." Her eyes darted to the shadows clinging to the staircase below. "It'll come for you next." I glanced behind me, feeling the darkness press closer, wrapping around the metal railing like vines. "I can't stay here," I whispered, inching back. "No, stay away from the edge." Her voice turned frantic. "It feeds on fear. You have to fight it." I didn't know how to fight something I couldn't see. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. You have to remember who you are. Don't let it take you." Her voice cracked, echoing despair. That's when the shadows shifted, coiling with deliberate menace, drawing nearer. I could feel something malevolent lurking in their depths. I needed to act, needed to find a way out, or a weapon, or... Suddenly, a loud crash resonated from above, followed by an unnatural, guttural roar. My heart dropped. The nurse. The thing was coming for us. "Run!" I shouted, instinctively grabbing the woman's arm. I had no idea where to go, but I couldn't stay. As we bolted back up the stairs, I felt the cold tendrils of darkness reach out, brushing against my skin like icy fingers. They were close. "Keep running,"
I yelled, my voice breaking, strength waning. The light at the top of the stairs became my target, but an otherworldly growl echoed from below. Then everything went dark. I woke with a start, cold sweat drenching my face. Panic pulsed through me as I tried to gather my thoughts, but my mind felt foggy. Had it all been a dream? The woman, the shadows, everything clashed in my memory. I blinked, hoping to find clarity. But the darkness remained intense, swallowing the stairwell. My breath quickened. I was still down there, in that forsaken hallway, but the woman was gone. "Hello?" I called out, my voice barely a whisper. There was no response, just the echo of emptiness. I rose shakily to my feet, the metal staircase reverberating with the slightest movement. As I stepped forward, I noticed an old flashlight flickering weakly on the ground not far from where I had collapsed. I picked it up, feeling its cold metal in my palm. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. Turning it on, I swept the narrow beam across the walls, revealing peeling paint and rusting pipes. Shadows danced in the corners, but I focused on moving forward. I had to find a way out. The air felt charged around me, thick with an unseen presence. I could almost hear it whispering, taunting me. Fear clutched at my chest as I recalled the woman's warning. It feeds on fear. I swallowed hard and forced myself to keep moving. My heart hammered in my ears. Just as I reached the next landing, I heard the faintest of sounds behind me. My breath caught. It was a small whimper, like a child about to cry. I spun around, shining the flashlight in its direction, revealing more stairs leading down into even deeper darkness. "Who's there?" The whimper grew louder, tinged with terror. My instincts yelled at me to run, to escape whatever was down here, but I couldn't leave a child behind. "I'm coming," I called out, trying to sound brave. I sprinted down the stairs, heart racing, the flashlight beam flickering in and out. As I approached the bottom, I saw a form crouched against the wall. It looked like a child wrapped in a thin blanket. Relief and dread warred within me. "Are you okay?" I knelt beside the figure. The blanket shifted, revealing a dirty face with wide, frightened eyes. "Help me," the child said, voice barely above a whisper. "It's coming." A chill ran through me as I looked back up the stairs. The air had shifted again, the temperature dropping drastically. I felt an overwhelming presence, like a weight pressing down on my shoulders. Then I saw it. A shadow began to materialize at the top of the stairs, slowly coiling downward, slithering like a living creature. I realized the child was right. In a surge of adrenaline, I grabbed the child's hand and stood. Fear ignited a spark of defiance within me. "We need to go, now." We bolted toward the nearest exit, but the shadows began to fill the space, blocking our path. My heart raced as I fought the urge to scream. Without thinking, I aimed the flashlight toward the shadows, desperate for light. "Leave us alone!" I shouted into the void, feeling the darkness shudder at my words. Then, right as I thought we would be engulfed, something shifted in the shadows. I couldn't see what, but I felt its eyes on me. That's when the child screamed. A sudden explosion of sound erupted around us, echoing against the walls. I squeezed the child's hand tighter, uncertain of what was coming next, or if we'd make it out alive. The darkness began to close in again. I darted forward, the child's small hand tightly gripped in mine. We stumbled through the tangled shadows that twisted and swirled around us. I could hear the whisper of something nearby, slinking through the air like a predator preparing to pounce. My heart raced. I couldn't let whatever that was catch us. As we moved deeper into the void, I tried to focus on the beam of the flashlight, steadying it as best I could. "Just a little farther," I urged, my voice shaking. I felt the child's fear pulsating in the air between us, forcing me to fight against my own rising panic. Then I noticed a dull glow ahead, a faint light piercing the wall of shadows. It seemed to pulse, beckoning me like a siren. My instinct screamed to run towards it. "There, we can reach the light." I tugged the child along, adrenaline fueling my every step. But even as we ran towards it, I could feel the darkness tightening around us, stinging my skin like icy tendrils. With every step, a cold dread coiled deeper in my stomach. The shadows hissed, a grotesque symphony of lost voices echoing through the air. "You won't escape," they seemed to say. We reached the glow, a door slightly ajar, a sliver of warm light spilling into the cold void. I pushed against it, the frame creaking in protest as I forced it open. The moment we crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind us, trapping us inside. We found ourselves in a cramped storage room, shelves lining the walls filled with dusty medical supplies. The light source flickered from a single bulb overhead, swinging slightly. I took a moment to catch my breath, scanning the room for any possible exits. "Why are we here?" the child asked, tears brimming in her eyes. "I don't know," I replied, my throat dry. "But we need to stay hidden. If we're quiet, maybe it won't find us." Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from outside the room. My heart sank. The shadows had followed us. I pressed my back against the door, straining to listen. The whispers grew louder, the words distorted and cruel. They spoke in a language I couldn't understand, but I felt their intention. They wanted to terrify us. Another loud bang followed by a shattering noise echoed in the hallway. My mind raced. I didn't understand what was going on, but I could sense whatever was out there was closing in. Just then, the light bulb flickered wildly before going out. Darkness engulfed us. I fumbled for the flashlight, my breath hitching in my throat. I couldn't see the child next to me. "Are you okay?" I whispered. "I'm scared," she replied, trembling. Before I could respond, there was a low growl, deep and resonant. It sent chills down my spine. I aimed the flashlight into the void, desperately hoping for a glimpse of what was lurking in the dark. That's when I saw it, a pair of glowing eyes fixated on us from across the room, unblinking and soulless. I stumbled back, heart pounding against my ribcage. Fear roared in my ears. The shadows wriggled closer, and I knew we were trapped. "Run!" I yelled, shoving the child toward a low window at the far end of the room. The growl grew louder, cutting through the darkness. The shadows surged, ready to claim us. And then, everything went dark again. When the darkness lifted, I found myself back in the cramped storage room, the cold sweat on my skin a reminder of what just transpired. The child was beside me, her small frame trembling, yet she was still. We were still alive. I flicked the flashlight on again, nearly blinded by the sudden brightness. My hand shook as I scanned the room for any sign of the eyes or the growl. "Stay close," I whispered, feeling the weight of the shadows pressing against the walls, as if they were trying to intrude. The light-illuminated boxes piled haphazardly, crates of forgotten medical supplies stacked precariously. My instincts told me to search for an exit, but fear clawed at my throat. I had to know what was happening. "Where do you think we are?" she asked, shaking off her fright just enough to speak. "I think this is some sort of old storage room, maybe in the hospital." The words felt strange, as if they didn't belong in this nightmare. "I think we need to find a way out." As I turned, I caught sight of a dusty red file folder half buried on one of the shelves.
My curiosity piqued in the midst of fear. I approached and gently pulled it free, the weight of it feeling oddly significant in my hands. My fingers trembled as I opened it, revealing yellowed pages filled with notes and diagrams. The words were faint, but I could make out references to experiments and subject recalls. My blood ran cold. Whatever they did here, it wasn't right. Then, a sudden crash echoed again outside the door, shading the room. The shadows twitched restlessly, and I knew we had very little time. "We need to go now," I urged, stuffing the folder under my arm. I ran over to the window, and my heart sank again. It was locked tight, and the glass was too thick for us to break through. The whispers grew louder, each word weaving a tapestry of dread in my mind. They were close, so close. In desperation, I turned my attention back to the door. "Can you help me?" I asked the child, my voice urgent. She nodded, fear now giving way to determination. Together, we shoved against the door, straining against its weight.
Instead of yielding, it felt like something from the other side pressed back. Panic washed over me. I knew if we didn't escape soon, we would be consumed by the darkness. Then, a figure loomed in the doorway, blocking the thin sliver of light. It was tall and unearthly, the edges blurred like smoke. I gripped the flashlight tightly, unsure whether to run or confront whatever it was. "Please, let us go," I cried, propelled by desperation. But the figure did not move. And then, in a voice that echoed like it belonged to the shadows, it spoke. "Your time is not yet over." I felt a chill bone deep. "What do you want from us?" I managed to splutter. It leaned forward, and a wave of cold struck me. I had never felt fear like this before. The shadows whispered around me, suffocating and cloying. "Find the truth," it hissed, and just like that, the figure vanished, leaving only the darkness. We stood there, breathless and confused. The child clutched at my side, and I knew we couldn't stay any longer. "We'll find a way out," I promised, though my voice trembled. With a final look at the door, I turned. The only other exit was the dark space between the shelves. I told myself it had to lead somewhere else. We had no choice. As we ducked into the narrow passage, the whispers followed us, echoing all around, leaving me to wonder what truth we would uncover next. The narrow passageway swallowed us whole, shadows dancing along the walls as the flashlight beam flickered over piles of forgotten supplies and clutter. I moved carefully, always aware of the child beside me, her breath soft and quick. The whispers trailed us like a haunting, weaving through the darkness, urging me to turn back, but there was no going back now. "Where are we going?" the child whispered, her voice barely audible. "Anywhere but here," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. My heart raced as I pushed deeper into the passage, bracing for whatever lay ahead. A sudden draft sent a chill up my spine. I paused, taking a moment to listen. The whispers were quieter now, almost beckoning. I moved again, keeping my flashlight steady, and turned a corner to find another cramped room. Boxes once again piled high, but this time there was something more. A door, slightly ajar with a faint light peeking through. "Should we go in?" the child asked, eyes wide with uncertainty. I hesitated, glancing back at the shadows behind us, still restless, still hungry. If we stayed here too long, I feared what would find us. "We have to see," I said firmly. We approached the door together, and my pulse quickened as I pushed it open. Inside, the room was brighter, illuminated by overhead fluorescent lights that buzzed with a loud hum. Medical equipment was scattered about, some still hooked up to monitors that flickered like dying stars. But it was the walls, lined with photographs and posters, that caught my attention, images of smiling children. I stepped closer, a sick feeling settling in my stomach. They looked familiar. "What is this place?" the child asked, her voice trembling. "Some kind of pediatric ward, maybe?" I ventured, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. But the smiles in the photographs felt wrong, like a mask hiding something dreadful. I scanned the notes tacked haphazardly beside the images. They contained names and dates, along with ominous phrases. Latest experiment, failure, recall. I felt the air grow thick, as if those phrases were weighing down on me. It was all connected, whatever had happened here. But just as I was piecing it together, the lights buzzed louder, and the door suddenly slammed shut behind us, plunging the room into an unsettling silence. The child cried out, and I turned sharply, my instinct screaming at me to find another way out. "We have to leave," I shouted, my voice echoing against the sterile walls. That's when I noticed it, movement in the corner of the room, a figure hunched over a desk, its features hidden in shadow. The low growl from before began to rise, a deep rumble that sent a jolt of fear through me.
I took a step back. "Who are you?" I called, though I was terrified of the answer. The figure slowly turned, revealing a face twisted in a horrifying mix of pain and anger. The emptiness in its eyes chilled me to the bone. "You shouldn't have come here," it hissed, voice raspy and broken. Panic flooded through me. I grabbed the child's hand, ready to bolt, but just as I turned, the door behind us rattled and shook. "No!" I screamed, pushing against it, but I could feel it resisting. Something was trying to get in. "We have to find a way out," I told the child, desperation clawing at my throat. I dragged her toward the far corner of the room. My mind raced through options, but as I looked around, all I saw were more shadows creeping in, more darkness pressing down on us. Suddenly, the figure lunged forward. "You cannot hide from the truth," it screeched, its voice reverberating in my ears. I stumbled backward, tripping over a pile of discarded equipment. Just as I thought I wouldn't be able to escape, a jagged opening appeared in the wall, a small vent, slightly ajar. "Come on," I yelled to the child, and together we dashed toward it, hope flaring in my chest. I pushed her through first, forcing myself to focus as the figure behind us continued to cry out. "Find the truth," I chanted in my mind, feeling the walls constricting around me. As I squeezed through the vent, I glanced back one last time. The figure stood at the doorway, mouth twisted in a cruel smile, shadows swirling around it. Then, darkness enveloped me completely as I disappeared into the unknown. I tumbled out of the vent and landed hard on the gold floor. The air was musty and stale, and I gasped, trying to catch my breath. I could barely see where we were, but at least the oppressive weight of the previous room was gone.
I quickly helped the child to her feet. She looked up at me, eyes wide with fear. "Where are we now?" I pointed my flashlight around the dim space. We appeared to be in another storage area, boxes stacked haphazardly against the walls. Another flickering overhead light buzzed disturbingly, casting eerie shadows that seemed to dance around us. "We don't have time to figure that out right now," I said, scanning for a way out. "We need to keep moving." I led her towards an exit, but something caught my eye. In the corner sat a dusty old wheelchair. As I stepped closer, I noticed a faded name tag on the seat. David Harrow. It was my brother's name. My heart sank. Like the children in those photographs, he had been in this place. "What's wrong?" the child asked, sensing my hesitation. I shook my head, forcing myself to focus. "Nothing. We just need to hurry." As we moved deeper into the room, the eerie buzzing of the light overhead intensified. The boxes seemed to lean in closer, as if trying to eavesdrop on our escape. I felt the chill creeping back in, a whisper of familiarity that I couldn't ignore. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the room. I spun around, my heart racing again. The door we had come through had burst open, and a dark figure silhouetted against the light beyond. My mind raced. Could it be the figure from before? Had it followed us? "Run!" I shouted, yanking the child's arm. We darted toward the far end of the room, frantic. The distant echoes of my voice were swallowed by the monstrous growls that resonated behind us. We reached another door and rushed through it. This room was different, cleaner, sterile. The starkness was a sharp contrast to the clutter we'd just left. On one wall, a digital clock blinked ominously, reading 0742. Morning was creeping closer, but there was no peace here either. "Can we hide?" the child whispered urgently. I glanced behind us and saw the figure moving quickly, blurring the line between shadow and substance. There was no hiding. "No, we can't," I said, panic rising in my chest. I spotted a door at the back, the only other exit. "We have to get through there." As we sprinted toward it, I heard a voice, familiar yet chilling, echoing through the room. "You can't escape it. The truth will find you." I shoved the door open and pulled the child through, but suddenly the lights flickered and went out. "Stay close," I yelled, our breaths the only sound in the suffocating darkness. And then, amidst the void, I heard something else, soft, almost childlike giggles, whispering for me. My heart pounded louder than the darkness, and I frantically felt along the walls, trying to find a way out. The giggles grew louder, weaving through my thoughts, taunting. That's when I realized we were not alone. I felt the cold edges of fear tighten around me as the shadows shifted, their giggling growing more sinister. "We have to move," I shouted, pulling the child close, heart racing.
I angled the flashlight, its beam slicing through the darkness, revealing more walls, more shadowy corners. "Focus, Mia." My mind raced as I tried to figure out a way forward. Just behind the giggles, I could sense the darker presence re-emerging, and I could hear it breathing, heavy and in time with my pounding heart. It was looking for us. "Are you still with me?" I asked the child, desperation spilling into my voice. Yes," she stammered, but I could hear the tremor in her words. Pressing forward, I spotted another door to the left, partially ajar.
the faintest light seeping through the crack. I steered us toward it, pushing it open. The sudden rush of fluorescent light blinded me momentarily. I winced, but didn't stop, bursting into the new space. We found ourselves in a corridor, flanked by rooms with barred windows. It felt like a prison, a long and hollow tomb. I quickly glanced inside each room. Some were empty, while others held flickering machines, as if a long-abandoned experiment awaited revival. I felt the air grow heavier, carrying the weight of memories best left buried. "Where are we?" the child asked, her voice quivering. "I'm not sure," I replied, swallowing my own terror, "but we must keep going." As we raced along the corridor, the lights flickered above, leaving us in shadows that seemed to reach out for us. I could almost hear the whispers begin to rise again, begging us to turn around, to succumb to despair. Then, I heard that familiar guttural growl once more. My heartbeat quickened, matching the icy dread pooling in my stomach. "It's coming," I hissed, dragging the child behind me. I pushed open a door at the end of the hall, bursting into an expansive room filled with medical equipment and ominous-looking machinery. Glass panes lined one wall, revealing yet more memories of the little ones lost within these walls. People used to take care of them. Now, I realized, this had become a place of torment. What had happened here? My mind raced with the fragmented images of smiling children and notes describing horrific experiments. The weight of the truth bore down, and I could almost feel the shadows closing in, ready to snatch us back. "We have to find a way out," I murmured, barely keeping my thoughts organized. The echoes of the past reverberated in my mind, fragmenting my focus. The clock read, 07:43 now. We had precious minutes left. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind us, startling both of us. "What?" "Help!" The cry came from behind a curtain draped in one corner, and I rushed forward, pulling the fabric back. A child appeared, terrified and gaunt, similar to the one I just rescued. "Help us, please. You have to get us out of here." "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "They're coming. They always come." The lights flickered again, and the growls echoed louder outside the room. Whatever lurked in the dark seemed closer, more desperate than before. "Stay back. I'll try to help."
I could see their eyes, glowing and hungry in the shadows. Fear whipped through me like a gale, but I needed to act. I pushed the other child toward the emergency exit on the far wall. "Go, now!" I shouted, even as I felt the shadows clawing at me from behind. She paused, fear holding her in place. "I can't leave you. You have to. There's no time." Panic surged as I stepped back, raising the flashlight and shining it toward the door, creating a brief barrier, forcing them to shudder and rip away from me, at least for the moment. Then it happened. The shadow surged, coiling towards us like a beast unleashed. I turned to face it. "Come on, move!" The children scrambled ahead of me, and I threw myself into the fray. An internal roar of defiance ignited within me as I fought against them. Whatever this was, it deserved no hold over us. I rushed after the others, seeking the newfound light at the end of the corridor, fixing my eyes on the exit sign glowing faintly. "Run! I can hold them back!" They didn't turn back, and I pushed dead weight against the door just as the shadows lunged at me, closing in. I could practically feel their hunger, their desire to swallow me whole. "No!" I screamed, flinging open the door with every ounce of strength that remained. We stumbled through the door, a rush of air filling our lungs as we barreled into the stairwell that led upward, freedom just above us. That's when I heard her voice again, whispering my name. "Mia." I froze mid-step, heart pounding. "Keep going," the child shouted, pulling at me. But the voice was insistent, echoing with a familiarity that tore at the edges of my sanity. "Mia." "Who are you? What do you want?" I shouted back into the abyss, my voice cracking. The shadows shivered, their atmosphere thickening menacingly. "You must know." "No!" I screamed, clenching my fists. "I don't want to know any more." In that moment, the shadows recoiled, the sound of their whispers quieting to a stillness. It was as if my defiance momentarily paralyzed them. I felt the shift,
the dread shattering space like cracked glass. "Go, now!" I shouted, finally breaking away from that haunting voice, determined to escape the gloomy past that had tethered me all night. The children and I sprinted up the staircase, and the light from the exit door shined above us like an angel waiting to welcome us home. As we burst through the exit, I breathed a sigh of relief, finally escaping the shadows of the past. But behind me, I could feel the weight of that unnerving voice lingering. Instead of closure, I was met with the unsettling realization that the truth might never rest. Perhaps some stories were destined to remain in shadows forever, just out of reach.